I was looking at the Forbes billionaire list the other day, just scrolling through the names. You know how it is.
Right. You see a lot of tech founders, a lot of finance moguls.
A lot of people who inherited an empire. And there's a very specific pipeline.
A pattern.
A clear pattern. It's Ivy League schools, it's venture capital, it's scaling code. It's a lot of zeros and ones.
It's predictable. You identify a market inefficiency, you exploit it, you scale. Simple.
Exactly. But then you stop on one name and the whole pattern just breaks. The code, glitches. Oprah Winfrey. Because when you actually dig into the data and really look at the starting conditions versus the final outcome, it just shouldn't have happened.
No. If you were running a simulation of the American economy starting in, say, 1954, and you inputted her initial variables,
right,
the algorithm would never, ever predict billionaire media mogul. It is, and I don't think this is an exaggeration, one of the most statistically improbable trajectories in modern history.
We are talking about a woman born into rural poverty in Mississippi. I mean, literally wearing dresses made out of potato sacks.
I know, it's an incredible image.
Who then goes on to become the first Black female billionaire in history. And not just wealthy, but someone who became a noun, a verb, an adjective all at once.
And that is exactly why this deep dive is necessary. We aren't here to just read a celebrity biography or list her favorite things.
No, this is a case study.
It's a case study in resilience, in business genius, and I think in a fundamental shift in how human beings communicate.
It's the Oprahification of culture, right? That's the term.
Precisely. We're going to unpack how she didn't just participate in the media landscape. She completely rewrote the rules of television, of publishing, of celebrity influence.
And what are we drawing on for this?
We're pulling from extensive biographical records, career timelines, a lot of financial data, and some really sharp analysis of her cultural impact, ranging from her early radio days all the way to her massive real estate portfolio and her philanthropic work.
So let's start at the very beginning. And when I say the beginning, I mean the name itself. Because, and this honestly blew my mind when I first read it, her name isn't actually Oprah.
Not originally, no. It's a classic case of what is basically a clerical error becoming a global brand. On her birth certificate, she is listed as Orpah. O-R-P-A-H.
Orpah? That's from the Bible, isn't it?
Yes, from the book of Ruth. Her Aunt Ida chose it. It's a biblical name, very traditional.
So what happened? How do you get from Orpah to Oprah?
Well, you have to understand the context. We're in rural Mississippi in the mid-50s.
Yeah.
Literacy rates aren't what they are today, and it's a pretty unusual name.
Not a common one.
No. And as the story goes, no one really knew how to spell it or pronounce it correctly. People just kept mispronouncing it, flipping the P and the R.
So they just kept saying Oprah?
They just kept saying Oprah, and eventually Oprah just stuck. It became the name.
Wow. That is such a fitting start for someone who essentially defined her own identity against all the odds. She didn't correct the world. She let the world define the name. And then she went on to define the meaning of it.
That's a great way to put it.
But let's talk about those odds. You mentioned Mississippi. We're not talking about just humble beginnings. This was severe poverty.
Oh, this was visceral poverty. She was born in Kosciuszko, Mississippi in 1954. Her mother, Vernita Lee, was a teenage single mother. Her parents were never married.
And her father wasn't around?
Her father, Vernon Winfrey, was in the armed forces at the time, so he wasn't present for the birth. And pretty soon after she was born, her mother traveled north to Milwaukee to find work.
So who is she with?
She left Oprah to be raised by her grandmother, Hattie Mae Lee, for the first 6 years of her life.
And this is where the famous potato sack dresses come in.
Yes. And I really want you to visualize that for a second.
Yeah.
Hattie Mae was destitute. I mean, truly, she didn't have money for fabric, so she literally sewed dresses for Oprah out of burlap potato sacks.
I can't even imagine that. The texture alone must have been awful, but
Like,
the social signal that sends.
that's the key. Imagine walking into a schoolyard or a church in the 1950s South wearing, essentially, farm equipment materials. You were immediately marked as other.
The bottom of the ladder.
You are the absolute bottom of the hierarchy. Oprah has talked about the relentless bullying she endured. It set up this dynamic of her being an outsider from the very beginning. She was the girl in the potato sack.
But her grandmother, Hattie Mae, she sounds like such a complex figure. Because on the one hand, she's putting Oprah in potato sacks, but she's also doing something else that turns out to be absolutely crucial.
Hattie A is a paradox, a complete paradox. On one hand, she was an incredibly harsh disciplinarian. She believed in that old adage, spare the rod, spoil the child.
How's the beatings?
Oh, yes. Oprah has said she endured beatings almost daily. It was a rough, hard, unforgiving upbringing. But on the other hand, Hattie Mae was the one who taught Oprah to read before she was even 3 years old.
Before 3, that's prodigy level.
It is. Hattie Mae was determined that Oprah would be literate. She took her to the local church, and Oprah's ability to just recite Bible verses from memory got her this nickname, the preacher.
The preacher, wow.
So you have this incredible dichotomy.
Yeah.
Severe discipline and crushing poverty on one side, but on the other, an early, intense installation of literacy and public performance.
It's almost like the talk show host was being forged right there on that farm.
Hattie Mae once said that ever since Oprah could talk, she was on a stage. She used to interview her corncob doll and the crows on the fence. She was building the skill set in a total vacuum.
So that foundation is laid, literacy and performance, but then the environment shifts dramatically. She moves to Milwaukee to live with her mother, Vernita, and things get, well, they get much darker.
Much, much darker. This is really the period of intense trauma and instability in her life. She moved to an inner-city neighborhood in Milwaukee at age 6.
And her mother.
Her mother, Vernita, worked incredibly long hours as a maid and had very little time for supervision. The family dynamics were just incredibly difficult.
And she had half-siblings by then too, right?
She did. There was a younger half-sister, Patricia, who sadly struggled with cocaine addiction for years and passed away in 2003.
That's tragic.
And a half-brother, Jeffrey, who died of AIDS-related causes back in 1989. And then, and this is another twist, there was a secret half-sister, also named Patricia, who was given up for adoption. Oprah didn't even know about her until 2010.
My God, that's a lot of family complexity and tragedy to deal with as a child. The trauma went beyond just neglect or family secrets.
It did. And Oprah's been incredibly open about this, which is a crucial part of her story because it informs her empathy later on. Starting at age 9, she was sexually abused.
By family members.
By a cousin, an uncle, and a family friend. She first spoke about this publicly on her own show in 1986, a really landmark moment in television.
And the response from her family when she tried to tell them.
It's just heartbreaking. According to biographers, when she discussed it with family members at age 24, they refused to believe her account.
So she was totally isolated.
Completely. You have this young girl, incredibly smart, but she's being abused and she's not being believed. That trauma escalated. She started acting out, running away from home at 13, stealing money from her mother to try and fit in with peers at a more affluent school she'd been transferred to.
And then at 14, a tragic pregnancy.
Yes, she became pregnant at 14. The son was born prematurely and died shortly after birth. I mean, it's a horrific trauma for anyone, let alone a child.
And to add another layer of betrayal to that tragedy?
Years later, in 1990, a family member sold that story to the National Enquirer.
That is just, I don't even have a word for that kind of betrayal. So you have this young girl, traumatized, on a clear downward spiral. By all conventional sociology, Oprah Winfrey should have become a statistic.
Absolutely. A teenage mother, abuse survivor, high school dropout in inner-city Milwaukee.
What stops the fall? What changes things?
Her father, Vernon Winfrey.
The turning point.
It really was. Her mother, Vernita, realizing she had completely lost control of Oprah, sent her to live with Vernon in Nashville. And Vernon was a different kind of guardian entirely.
What was he like?
He was a barber and a city councilman. He was very, very strict. But he made education the absolute #1 priority, no exceptions.
He wasn't accepting anything less than her best.
Not for a second. He looked at her grades. She was like a C student at that point and just said, no, you are better than this.
Yeah.
He instituted a strict curfew. He demanded she read a book every single week and write a report on it.
He demanded book reports from his own daughter.
Can you imagine? He treated parenting like a job with clear deliverables, and you know what? It worked.
How so?
Oprah's been quoted saying, "He saved me. He simply knew what he wanted and expected he would take nothing less." And under his roof, the transformation was almost immediate.
From what to what?
She went from a delinquent trajectory to an excellence trajectory in about 2 years. She became an honor student. She was voted most popular girl. She joined the speech team and placed second in the nation in dramatic interpretation.
It's that Pygmalion effect, isn't it? When you have high expectations, you create high performance.
That's it, exactly. And this leads right into her media career. It starts while she's still in high school, right?
Yes. because she had that voice, that preacher voice from her childhood. She won the Miss Black Tennessee beauty pageant at age 17.
Then that gets her noticed.
It gets her noticed by a local black radio station, WVOL. They hired her to do the news part-time. She did that through her senior year of high school and into college at Tennessee State University, where she had a full scholarship.
Though, fun fact, she didn't technically hand in her final paper until 1987.
Is that right?
Yeah, well, after she was famous. She was a few credits shy of the degree because her career took off so fast. She eventually finished it, but she was already a millionaire TV host before she officially got the diploma.
That's amazing. So she's in Nashville, she's doing radio, and then she breaks into television. She becomes the youngest and first black female news anchor at WLAC TV. That sounds like a dream job, but it wasn't a smooth ride, was it?
Not at all. And this is such a crucial part of her evolution. She moved to Baltimore to co-anchor the news at WJZ-TV in 1976. And, to put it bluntly, she failed.
Failed how? I mean, how does Oprah Winfrey fail at TV?
She failed at being a news anchor. You have to think about the era. This is the 1970s. The model for a news anchor is Walter Cronkite.
Just the facts. Detached, objective, serious.
And Oprah is. Constitutionally, none of those things.
Yeah.
She is incapable of detachment. She would read a story about a fire or some tragedy, and she would start tearing up on air. Her voice would crack.
She was empathizing with the subjects.
Way too much for the news directors. Management hated it. They criticized her for being too emotional. They also criticized her physical appearance. They sent her to a salon that gave her this awful French perm, which made all her hair fall out.
Oh, my God.
So she was bald, emotional, and seen as a total liability on the anchor desk.
So what did they do? Did they fire her?
They couldn't. She had a contract. So they kicked her off the anchor desk and put her where they thought she could do the least damage. The morning slot, a little local talk show called People Are Talking.
The graveyard slot.
Exactly. And that was the spark. August 14th, 1978, she does her first show. And she later said that the very first day she did that show, she felt like she had finally come home.
Because her weakness became her strength.
Her emotional style, which was seen as unprofessional for the news, was pure gold for a talk format. She could connect. She could empathize. It was her superpower.
This is a classic product market fit moment in business, isn't it? She was trying to sell the product of news anchor, and the market said no. She switched to the product of human connection, and the market just exploded.
It was instantaneous. Within a short time, she was beating Phil Donahue in the local Baltimore ratings. And you have to remember, Donahue was the absolute king of daytime TV back then.
Which brings us to Chicago, 1984. She gets headhunted to take over this low-rated morning show called AM Chicago.
It was in last place, dead last in the market. And within months, not years, months, she took it to #1, overtaking Donahue in the much bigger Chicago market.
And we have to mention Roger Ebert here.
Yes, the film critic. This is such a great story. He and Oprah dated briefly in the mid-'80s, and he gave her perhaps the single most important piece of business advice of her entire life.
What was it?
She was considering a syndication deal with ABC. Standard deal. Ebert pulled out a napkin in a restaurant and did the math for her. He told her, don't sign with them. Sign with King World instead.
Why King World? What was the difference?
Because they would give her a percentage of the gross revenue, not just a salary. He predicted she would generate massive revenue. He said something like 40 times what his and Siskel's show made.
Good advice, right?
Unbelievably good advice. The show was renamed The Oprah Winfrey Show. It went national in September 1986, and it immediately displaced Phil Donahue as the #1 daytime talk show in America.
Let's unpack that rivalry for a second, though, because Phil Donahue really was the pioneer. He invented the format, the audience participation, walking around with the microphone.
He did. He built the house.
So what did Oprah do differently? What was the technical difference in the product that made her so much more successful?
This is where we need to introduce a concept from sociolinguistics, which is rapport talk versus report talk.
Okay, break that down for us.
Phil Donahue's style was fundamentally report talk. It was informational. It was somewhat journalistic. He would walk into the audience, hold the microphone, and ask, "Sir, what is your opinion on this public policy?" It was debate-oriented.
And Oprah?
Oprah introduced rapport talk.
Rapport talk.
Yes. Time magazine did a great assessment of this back in 1988. They noted she lacked what they called journalistic toughness. But she excelled in empathy, curiosity, and humor. She didn't ask for opinions. She validated feelings.
So it wasn't what do you think, it was how did that feel?
It was, I feel your pain. Or even, that happened to me too. She completely dissolved the barrier between the host and the guest, between the stage and the audience.
That's the whole Oprahfication term we mentioned, right? The idea of public confession as a form of therapy.
Exactly. She blurred the lines between public and private life in a way no one ever had before. By sharing her own struggles, her weight, the abuse, her relationship issues, she made it safe for guests and the audience to do the same. She wasn't an authority figure looking down. She was a friend sitting right beside you.
And this had real, tangible social consequences. We have to talk about the impact on the LGBT community.
This is so significant. The sociologist Joshua Gamson argues that the tabloid talk shows of that era, and specifically Oprah's show, did more to make LGBT people mainstream and socially acceptable than almost any other single development in the 20th century.
That's a massive claim.
It's a huge claim, but think about the visibility. In the 80s and early 90s, gay people were often either completely invisible in the media or they were punchlines. Oprah put them on the couch. She treated them like human beings with relatable emotional lives, problems, joys.
And then, of course, there was the 1997 episode of the sitcom Ellen, the famous puppy episode, where Ellen DeGeneres came out.
And who guest starred in that episode?
Oprah, as the therapist.
She literally played the role of the person helping America accept this revelation. And she took massive, massive heat for it. Hate mail, death threats, affiliates refusing to air it. But she stood by it. It's a prime example of her using her platform to actively shift the culture, not just reflect it.
So she's shifting the culture, but she's also building a bank account that is, frankly, staggering. Let's move to part 3, the billionaire businesswoman. Because she didn't just take a salary like Roger Ebert warned her not to.
No. And this is the business lesson of the century. When she went into syndication, she didn't just take that cut of the revenue. She eventually negotiated ownership rights of her own program. She established Harpo Productions.
Oprah spelled backwards.
And ownership is everything.
It's the key.
It is. Owning the program means she owns the master tapes. Every single time that show re-airs, every time it's sold to a foreign market, every clip that's used in a highlight reel, she gets paid. She isn't being paid for her time. She's being paid for the assets she created.
That's the real wealth generator.
It allowed her to become a millionaire by age 32. By the time she was 41, she was worth $340 million, and she replaced Bill Cosby on the Forbes 400 list. She was the only African American on that list for a long time.
And when did she hit the $1 billion mark?
That was in 2003. She officially became the world's first black female billionaire. And for a long time, she was the only one.
It's just incredible. A 2006 report I saw said she earned $260 million that year alone.
Which was 5 times more than the number 2 earner in entertainment, Simon Cowell.
And she wasn't just hoarding it, she was expanding. She leveraged that incredible cash flow to build an entire ecosystem around the Oprah brand.
Right. She co-founded the Oxygen Network for Women. She launched OO, the Oprah magazine. And that magazine was an absolute beast. Fortune magazine called it the most successful startup in the entire industry at the time.
It wasn't just a fan newsletter, was it?
Oh, no. It was a lifestyle Bible for upwardly mobile women. The average reader earned well above the median income. It solidified her status not just as a host, but as a true tastemaker.
And then, of course, the Oprah Winfrey Network, OWN, which launched in 2011 after the show ended. And more recently, her big partnership with Apple TV plus Ellie.
It's a full-fledged empire. But what's so fascinating is that this entire empire is built on one thing, influence. Which brings us to the Oprah Effect.
This is a term that economists actually study.
They do. It's the documented power to influence public opinion and, more importantly, consumer purchasing on a massive, massive scale.
The most obvious and famous example being the book club.
The book club, launched in 1996. It was Midas touch. If Oprah selected your book, you were a bestseller. Period. End of story.
It didn't matter if it was a new novel or a classic.
It didn't matter at all. She picked John Steinbeck's East of Eden, a book that had been out for decades, and it soared to the top of the bestseller charts. She did the same with Tolstoy's Anna Karenina. We're talking about generating tens of millions of dollars in sales, sometimes overnight.
But it wasn't always smooth sailing. There were a few very public controversies. The Jonathan Franzen incident stands out.
Oh, yes. The Clash of the Titans. This is in 2001. She picked his very serious literary novel, The Corrections.
And he wasn't happy about it.
He publicly said he cringed at the selection. He implied that having that Oprah sticker on his book cover meant it was schmaltzy or lowbrow.
Ouch. That's some palpable snobbery.
It was, and Oprah did not take it lying down. She rescinded the invitation to be on her show. She basically said, okay, you don't have to be a part of the club. It was a huge power move.
It showed she didn't need the validation of the literary elite.
They needed her.
And then the James Frey scandal. A Million Little Pieces. That was much more serious.
That was a major, major moment for her credibility. She promoted this memoir about addiction and redemption as a true story. She championed it. And it turned out...
Large parts of it were fabricated?
Exactly. And Oprah initially defended him, but then she must have realized the damage this could do to her entire brand.
Because her brand is built on trust.
Her brand is trust.
Yeah.
Her brand is authenticity. If she is seen as a peddler of lies, even unintentionally, the entire Oprah effect evaporates. So what did she do?
She invited him back on the show.
And she effectively interrogated him. She flayed him alive on national television. It was brutal to watch, but she had to correct the record publicly to maintain that sacred trust with her audience.
That Oprah effect wasn't limited to books, though. It could move entire markets. I'm thinking of the beef lawsuit.
1996, the mad cow episode. She had a guest on discussing the dangers of mad cow disease, and in the middle of the conversation, Oprah famously said, "It has just stopped me cold from eating another burger."
One sentence.
Just one sentence.
Oh.
And cattle futures on the stock market plummeted. Beef producers claimed they lost $11 million almost instantly.
So they sued her.
A group of Texas cattlemen sued her for business disparagement. It was a huge trial. She had to move her entire show production down to Amarillo, Texas, for the duration of the trial.
And she won.
She won. The jury found she wasn't liable. It was seen as a huge victory for free speech, but it also just demonstrated her sheer economic power. A single off-the-cuff comment from Oprah Winfrey could crash a commodity market.
And that incredible power translated to politics, too, the 2008 election.
This is where you can argue the Oprah effect literally changed the course of American history. She had never endorsed a presidential candidate before 2008.
But she came out for Barack Obama.
Very early in the Democratic primary. And this wasn't just another celebrity saying, hey, I like this guy. No. Economists at the University of Maryland actually crunched the numbers. They ran a statistical analysis and estimated that her endorsement was directly responsible for approximately 1 million votes for Obama in the Democratic primary.
1 million votes.
Yeah.
Given how close that primary race was between Obama and Hillary Clinton.
It is very, very likely that her endorsement was the single deciding factor that won in the nomination.
That is just wild. A talk show host tilting a presidential election.
The governor of Illinois at the time, Rod Blagojevich, said her voice was larger than all 100 senators combined.
And she's continued that influence, right? She endorsed Hillary in 2016, John Fetterman in 2022, and Kamala Harris in 2024. But 2008 really felt like the peak of that political power.
It was. But as her influence grew, so did the scrutiny and the criticism regarding how she used it, particularly in the realm of health and spirituality.
Right. Let's move to part 5, the Church of O, as some called it.
In the mid-90s, the show made a very deliberate pivot away from the trashier tabloid topics. You know, the my teen is out of control kind of stuff.
And moved toward
Change Your Life TV. It became about spirituality, self-improvement, mindfulness. Christianity Today even called her a postmodern priestess.
She brought figures like Eckhart Tolle to the mainstream.
His book, A New Earth. She did these massive online web seminars with him that millions of people watched. She heavily promoted The Secret, which is all about the law of attraction. She was blending a kind of Christianity with New Age spirituality and self-help.
But this is also where things get a bit sticky with science, because when you elevate intuition and personal testimony above everything else, you sometimes run into a wall of scientific fact.
You do. And she has faced significant and many would say valid criticism for promoting what some call junk science. Because she trusted her gut and she trusted her friends, she sometimes gave a massive platform to some very dangerous ideas.
For example, Jenny McCarthy.
Yes. Jenny McCarthy's anti-vaccine views were given a huge megaphone on Oprah's show at the height of her influence. Suzanne Summers was on promoting bioidentical hormone treatments that were not accepted by mainstream medicine.
And then there are the doctors she actually made famous, Dr. Phil and Dr. Oz.
These are her direct protégés. Dr. Phil has been criticized for years by organizations like the National Alliance on Mental Illness as being unethical in his approach. But Dr. Oz is probably the most significant controversy.
He was her go-to health expert.
He was America's doctor because of her. The Oprah Effect launched his career into the stratosphere. But he went on to be hauled before Congress for promoting so-called miracle weight loss pills that didn't work.
And his advice during the pandemic.
Right. His comments on COVID-19 and unproven cures led to widespread calls for Oprah to publicly denounce him. It really highlights the double-edged sword of her influence.
How so?
People trust her implicitly. So if she endorses a doctor, that doctor has instant credibility with millions. If that doctor then peddles pseudoscience, Oprah shares in some of that responsibility, whether she wants to or not.
And speaking of health, we have to talk about her own very personal, very public battle, her weight.
It was arguably the most public struggle of her entire life, played out for decades on magazine covers and on her show.
I will never forget the wagon of fat.
1988. A classic Oprah moment. She wheeled out a little red wagon containing 67 pounds of animal fat to represent the weight she had lost on a liquid diet. It was so visceral. It was triumphant.
But she gained it all back.
Because she did. And she was always brutally honest about it. She once called her weight a cushion against the world's disapproval, which links all the way back to that need to be liked she developed as a bullied child.
And later in life, she bought a huge stake in Weight Watchers.
She bought 10% of the company, joined the board, and has been very open recently about using new weight loss drugs like Ozempic. She monetized the struggle. It's been a lifelong public conversation she's had with her audience.
Let's pivot a bit to her artistic side. Because beyond the talk show, she's an Oscar-nominated actress.
She is. Her role as Sophia in The Color Purple back in 1985, it was her film debut, she was nominated for Best Supporting Actress.
And it was a powerful performance.
A powerhouse performance. And you can talk about art imitating life. Sophia is this strong-willed woman who is beaten down by society, but absolutely refuses to break. Oprah channeled everything she had been through into that role.
And then she produced the Broadway musical adaptation years later. But her next big film, Beloved, that was a different story.
Beloved was her ultimate passion project. It was released in 1998, based on the masterpiece novel by Toni Morrison. Oprah played the lead role, Seeth, a former slave haunted by her past.
And her preparation for that role was intense.
Unbelievably intense. She underwent a 24-hour slavery simulation where she was tied up, blindfolded, and left in the woods to try and connect with the trauma of the character.
She really committed.
She did. But the movie was a commercial failure, a big one. It lost about $30 million. It seemed audiences just weren't ready for a heavy supernatural slavery drama from the queen of daytime.
A hard blow for her.
A very hard blow, especially given the emotional and financial investment. But she kept going. She had significant Oscar buzz for her role in The Butler in 2013, though she was ultimately snubbed for a nomination, and she starred in Disney's A Wrinkle in Time.
It just goes to show that even Oprah doesn't win every single time, but she wins where it counts, especially when it comes to philanthropy.
Her generosity is just legendary. Her angel network raised over $80 million for various causes. And this is the key part. Oprah personally covered all the administrative costs herself.
So 100% of donations went to the charity.
100%. That is incredibly rare in the charity world. Usually, a big chunk goes to overhead.
And of course, the school in South Africa.
The Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy for Girls. She invested $40 million of her own money to build it from the ground up. She was involved in every detail. The thread count of the sheets, the design of the dorms. She wanted it to be beautiful.
And there was some criticism about that, right? That it was too elitist.
Yes. Critics asked, why are you building a palace for a few dozen girls instead of a simpler school for thousands? Her response was fascinating.
What did she say?
She said, if you are surrounded by beautiful things and wonderful teachers who inspire you, that beauty brings out the beauty in you. She wanted to signal to these black girls from impoverished backgrounds that they deserve the absolute best, not just the bare basics.
And she has a real maternal connection to those girls, doesn't she?
She calls them her daughters. Since she has no living children of her own, the Academy really became a focus for her nurturing instincts.
That brings us to her personal life, the enigma that is Stedman Graham.
Stedman Graham. They have been partners since 1986. They were engaged once, back in 1992, but they never married. It's one of the most enduring partnerships in Hollywood, precisely because it defies convention.
Why do you think they never got married?
Well, Oprah herself has said that if they had married, they would have divorced by now. She realized she couldn't fit into the traditional role of wife. She needed a partnership that allowed her to be the global titan that she is, without traditional domestic expectations.
And Stedman seems secure enough for that.
He seems to be one of the few men on earth secure enough to stand in that powerful a shadow without feeling like he's disappeared.
And then, of course, there's Gayle.
Gayle King, the ultimate best friend. The platonic ideal of a best friend. For years, rumors have persisted that they are gay, which Oprah has consistently and firmly denied.
How does she describe the relationship?
She put it beautifully once in Old Magazine. She said, "There isn't a definition in our culture for this kind of bond between women. It's a platonic soulmate connection. In a life where everyone wants something from her, Gail is the one person who just wants her."
And finally, the real estate. Because you can't be a billionaire without some serious property.
The portfolio is vast. She has properties in Hawaii, in Colorado, in Washington state. But the crown jewel is the Promised Land estate in Montecito, California.
That's the main one.
It started at 42 acres, and she's expanded it to over 70 acres. It's not just a home, it's a sanctuary.
From potato sack dresses in rural Mississippi to a 70-acre estate called the Promised Land.
It is the ultimate, almost unbelievable American story.
So let's wrap this all up. We've gone from that farm in Mississippi through the trauma, the radio days, the complete takeover of daytime TV, the billions, the influence, the controversies. What is the big takeaway here?
I think the biggest takeaway is that Oprah Winfrey didn't just succeed in the existing system. She fundamentally changed the system. She replaced the voice of authority, which was, for centuries, the white male news anchor, with the voice of the friend.
She validated emotion as a legitimate way of understanding the world.
She did. And she proved that vulnerability, which is often seen as a weakness, can actually be your greatest business asset.
A source of power.
A massive source of power. But here's the provocative thought I want to leave you with.
Go for it.
We talked about the Oprah Effect, that singular ability to unify a massive national audience, to sell 1 million books in a day, to swing a presidential election. In today's completely fractured media landscape, with social media algorithms, TikTok, niche podcasts, and political echo chambers, is it even possible for anyone to ever have that much centralized power again?
That's a great question. Is Oprah the last of the monoculture titans? The last person everyone listened to at the same time?
I suspect she might be. She was a singular event formed by the unique concentration of 3 broadcast networks and the dawn of mass syndication. We will have influencers, sure. We will have stars. But we may never again see a single human being hold that much sway over the entire culture.
A singular event indeed. Thank you for taking this journey with us. It really makes you think about how we all consume media today. Are we looking for information or are we looking for that rapport?
And who are we inviting into our living rooms through our screens?
Exactly. Thanks for listening to this deep dive on Oprah Winfrey. We'll see you next time.